Welcome to Documentary First, an inside look at a documentary filmmaker's journey. I'm your host, Josh Lindsay from the Movie Proposal Podcast. And with us is our documentary filmmaker, Christian Taylor.
Hey, Josh, how you doing?
Hey, Christian, how are you?
Good to see you. It's kind of strange going to this, every other week format. So I feel like I haven't seen you guys in a long time.
I wasn't even there when you announced that, so I didn't know that.
Oh, we're going to every other week, Jason.
All right. Sounds good.
Every other week.
No one told me.
Sorry.
And speaking of forgetting about Jason, it's Jason Rugg is also on the podcast.
Hey there.
Hey there. So good to see you, Jason.
Good to see you.
Yeah, just as a reminder, things are in a lull period right now. There's some stuff happening, but we can't even begin editing the stuff we shot in France until September because Bill has got a couple of big movie projects that he's working on. So really, it's all the business of, the movie making stuff right now. And it's kind of summer break. So I figured we would just go to a every other week format for a little bit.
Rock and roll.
All right.
Well, Christian, what it's not like nothing's happening. What is happening in your world?
Yeah, that's true. Actually, we need to celebrate today because we have now signed a distribution deal. Woohoo! And maybe
2.0.
Yeah, 2.0, exactly. Maybe no surprise to anyone, but we have signed a distribution deal with Virgil Films Entertainment. This really is still on the down low. I don't think that we'll make a formal announcement until November. We hope that what they call a street date will be November 1st, in time for Veterans Day and everything that happens along with that in November. It's going to take us a lot of time to get all the deliverables in. So we're super excited about this partnership. We've been working with Virgil Film for the last year on our other projects. So we have built a relationship with them of trust and, just super happy working with this company. I really like them all very much. They are super communicative. They respond to emails and phone calls. And they just are very open and honest. So I do have a good feeling that we're in where we need to be right now. So feeling good about that.
Awesome. So why, I could guess, but why don't you explain, why would you just not announce and make a big deal of, publicly that you have a distributor?
Right. We were talking about that with them on our first call yesterday. And basically, if you announce now, people cover that now. Let's say we get it into a couple of magazines or things like that. Nobody's going to, there needs to be a call to action at the end, hey, go watch this movie here. And if this movie can't be watched anywhere, it's just sort of, they won't recover it, right, when it actually launches. So you kind of want to do that announcement at the same time that you are about ready to release. So it makes a lot of sense. We want to maximize whatever media attention we can get right when it's time for people to buy the film. And as I was going through this meeting yesterday, and largely this was about the deliverables and what the process is going to look like, I remembered going back all the way to 2021, May 2021, when we were going to release on iTunes. And the instructions were given to us by FFS that we needed to get all our friends and family to watch it on iTunes, to then, give it a rating and give it a review. And we made a huge push through our mailing list and on our social media to get people to do that. And we got tons of great reviews, obviously, and there were hundreds there. And I didn't realize when FFS took us off iTunes, I didn't think about the fact that we would lose all of those, which of course we did. And so I've been thinking about trying to marshal that army of supporters again to go and rate and review on iTunes. And I'm like, I just don't know that people would do that again. We're going to try. But the good news is they will also be putting us, it sounds like, on Amazon, video on demand. Basically, we're on Amazon, but you're going to have to pay to rent or buy it, which is much better than the situation we were in previously. And people, I think, are going to be excited about the fact that we're going to be on Amazon. So maybe it will be easier to get people to review and rate the film. We hope.
All right.
And so that'll all happen, we hope, in November. So if you're listening to this, we are going to ask you to please rate and review, this film there. And we'll kind of keep everybody updated on the progress, of course. There's a lot that needs to happen between now and then. And one of the things that I sort of hit a wall this week was initially FFS created a Dropbox where they said, upload everything to this Dropbox. And it had all the different folders for the deliverables, which I thought was super, helpful and very organized. And all I really needed to do was upload the stuff they needed into those Dropbox folders. And so I started doing that. And then at some point they decided to create a second Dropbox for me to load everything into, and they kind of transferred everything over. Well, when I went to go to that second Dropbox, which did have absolutely everything in it, it was gone. So it looks like FFS removed my ability to get all of our stuff back. I still had access to the original one they created, but it didn't have everything in it. So that was super frustrating and very angering that I wasn't able to, now I'm going to have to go back to Jason and go back to, Bill, and go back to maybe graphic people to try to cobble all that stuff together again. So I started doing that, yesterday. And the other thing that I have to do is, now that I have this contract, I have to go and make the agreements for that, 1 minute of music we have in our film with Sony and Reservoir Media for the licensing rights. The last time I checked with them, those are going to be, the publishing rights and the sync rights have to have favored nation status. So they both have to have the same fee. So I got them both to agree to $1,000 for a 5-year period. That may sound great, but that's going to be $2,000 for me right now, which is going to be a challenge. And then I do have to provide my own Eno Insurance. I think I've said this before on the podcast, but the most interesting thing for me during this process was I learned from the Eno Insurance people that I called that when FFS said their Eno Insurance was going to cover us, I thought that was great news, and it does sound like great news, but apparently it doesn't do any good if somebody was to sue for any error and omissions, because a distributor's Insurance does not cover the producer, actually.
So were they mistaken or misleading, or?
I don't know. I don't know if they knew that or not. I don't know. But now that I have talked to the Eno people and I've talked to Virgil Films, they all say the same thing. Virgil Films doesn't even carry Eno Insurance anymore because it doesn't cover the producer. Wow. So that's why we have to go out and get our own that does cover the producer. That's going to be anywhere from $3,500 to $5,000. So I'm looking at another big expenditure, just to get this film distributed.
And I had asked last time if that dollar amount was, it just covered the film forever, or was it annual, or
right? It's going to be a $1 to $3 million coverage for 2 years. So then we're going to have to renew that. I mean, I think that's one interesting thing, as I was going through this contract and thinking about the fact, I'd earlier said I would never do a distribution contract longer than 18 months or 2 years or something like that. But now that we're in distribution 2.0, and I am realizing the difficulty in doing this every single time and the amount of money that it's going to cost me every single time, it really is in my best interest to settle in for a long period of time. And, I really did have sort of the bad boyfriend syndrome going into this, where like I had been totally wounded and hurt. I was trustful. I was excited going into this relationship, and, my heart was broken. I was treated abusively. And so I really had that same guardedness coming into this. But then I remembered, I've had this relationship with them now for over, like a year and a half, and they have proven themselves to me already. And I really do need to just step into that with trust.
See, if this was a movie, the audience would have known that was the boyfriend you were supposed to be with all along.
all
And he
along.
was just the third wheel best friend, crying shoulder guy, and he was patient, and we were
Totally
rooting
true.
for him. And finally, love happened.
Totally true. It's interesting because Joe Amodei came to me shortly after we had signed the deal with FFS, and said, "Hey, we really want to, release this film." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry," So yeah, that's exactly what this would be like. So, so anyway, I'm encouraged. I think there's good things on the horizon. I think that it will take a long time. I was told, and it did kind of confirm to me that it really does take a long time for the proceeds. Like, let's say it starts to air in November. We're really not going to see any income from that probably for another 6 to 9 months at all. Because yes, after the first quarter, they will see some income, but they are going to have to recoup their deliverable costs. And those are a real thing. Like, it costs money for them to upload to all these different platforms. And, there is work that has to be done on their end, and they do have to pay people. So there are legitimate distribution fees, that are included in there that they have to recoup before they can pay us anything. So, it's going to be another long haul, I think, before we see any income from this film. So I just need to be set and ready for that.
All right. Well,
yeah. So that happened this week. I do have another exciting thing that's going on today. So one of the big things that I've been thinking about, and I've said this before, is that because we really have no income coming in for a long time, the biggest place that I can find income is in presenting the film in a live event like I've been doing with L'Oreal, Delta, Michelin, etc. And really, I need a salesperson to make those phone calls and develop those leads and create those opportunities for me. I haven't been able to find anyone, but I'm having a meeting today with someone who's considering it. So that is encouraging. And I do hope that something will come from that, because I do think that it would be incredibly helpful.
That's exciting.
So that is exciting.
You have to keep us posted on that one. Okay. Any other news we need to be covering?
Nope, I don't think so. The other things I'm going to be working on are, we do have to re-edit the credits. So that's 2 things I've got to do. I got to get FFS out of the actual credits at the end, and I've got to get them out of like a title sequence at the end. So what that means is I have to go back to our credit guy that created them and say, hey, take this out, re-render, send it to Bill. And then Bill is now going to have to take that new credit sequence and add it to the end of the film, and then remove FFS and the title sequence. Then we're ready to deliver that. So until Bill gets back to work, that can't really happen, but I hope that I can get Daniel Petterino to revise our credits. That will be a good thing. And thanks to Mindy Cook, all of our interviews that we did in France for the Carentan project have now been separated out. I have to run those through Rev, which is the translation transcription, team. And then I have to get that going. That's going to cost me a lot of money. So I'm kind of waiting till I have that. And then the other thing that's happening is Flo Plana and a team in France interviewed another French survivor. So now we have that in the can. That shoot went very well, I'm told. And I've seen a lot of pictures from that. I've got the reports from people who were there. Michelle Coupé was the producer on that shoot. So now I have to process that interview as well. So those are kind of the things we're working on at the moment, still keeping me busy. But other than that, I'm trying to enjoy the summer.
Awesome. Well, should we shift gears and go to our quote news segment?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. Well, you know what that means, everyone. It's now time for DocuView Deja Vu.
DocuView Deja Vu. Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, so I'm going to go first because I'm going to rock the boat here and do something. I don't know that we have any rules, but it probably is a rule I'm going to break. I've not seen this.
Oh,
But I am in the middle. So here, I'll tell you what it is. It's the Staircase documentary miniseries. It's the BBC did this back in 2004, but just recently HBO Max did a limited series of the dramatization of this true crime story.
can I just guess what this is about? Is this about the guy who's murdered a bunch of women, and one of them he pushed down the staircase or something like that, or maybe all of them? That's how they died, or
you might be on the right track. I don't want to give too much away. At first, I'm like, no, you're not right at all. But then the more you went on, I thought, well, maybe you're just a little confused. So it's about a gentleman he's in one of the Carolinas, North or South Carolina. He's this guy who he's running for office. He's a writer, and everyone likes this guy, loves this guy. But he's kind of a little creepy, and there's some shady stuff in his past. And anyway, his wife dies, and she's at the bottom of a staircase, and apparently she fell, but there was enough evidence to suggest that he did it. So we are watching the miniseries on HBO Max with Toni Collette is the wife, and then I want to say Colin Firth. Yeah. Yep. You know him from things like Love Actually and
King's Speech.
King's Speech. There you go. That was a big one for him. It's a limited series, and there's a lot of back and forth of like, oh, this guy is guilty as sin, and then things get revealed, and you think, oh my goodness, maybe he's actually innocent, and then things happen again. You're like, oh no, this guy did it, and then you're confused. And so we haven't finished the dramatization limited series on HBO, and I haven't even seen the actual documentary, because here's what's interesting: in the HBO series, it's following this family. It's a blended family, like they're both kind of had divorces and things like that, and kids from other places, and so there's this big mix of kids, and it's kind of confusing, to be honest. The wife dies, he's arrested, and these French filmmakers decide they want to do a documentary on the American justice system, and they want to follow this family around. So it's kind of a reality TV thing where they come in with their film cameras and shoot a ton of footage. So you're watching almost like a documentary of a documentary happen. So it makes you want to watch the documentary. Of course, at this point, I have no idea what comes out in the end, but it's kind of it's hard to recommend, because it's a very difficult subject. I mean, it's murder, and there's just some real unpleasant things in it. On the other hand, it's, really great actors. If you do like true crime, it is a very compelling story, because it is a real mystery. How did this woman die? And you think and all these people are convinced, but it's hard to say who's right.
all right. So what's the name of the documentary?
They're both called The Staircase. So
they're both called The Staircase. Okay.
Yeah. So there's the documentary series, and then what's that?
When will it be released?
So the original documentary is 2004. The one with Colin Firth is out right now on HBO Max. It just came out.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused. So are there three?
No, there's two. There's the original docuseries back in 2004, which is the actual French filmmakers came over while this trial was going on. And that was a docuseries. And then they made a dramatization of that with Toni Collette and Colin Firth, where actors are portraying them. And in this story, in this true crime story, part of the story is a documentary film crew that comes in and films them. And they're very much part of the story. Like, they kind of cross over into the world. and probably in ways they shouldn't. But there's only two series.
How can you see the 2004 documentary
on the internet? it's out there somewhere. I don't know. It's on the BBC.
Okay. The original one is on Netflix.
Netflix. Okay.
Okay. So Netflix is the original one. HBO Max has the dramatization.
Okay. Excellent. Now I can't wait. Thanks for sharing that, Josh.
All right, then I could go next if you want.
Yeah.
So I can't remember if we talked about Bo Burnham's Inside.
Yes.
I think we talked about that. So about a month ago, he released an hour-long behind the scenes and outtakes special on YouTube. And you can watch, like, there are some parts where he has 28 takes up simultaneously of the same song, and you get to watch them drop out one by one as he messes up, or that sort of thing. You can watch some go all the way through, and you can try and be like, okay, why did he pick that take, or why didn't he pick that one? And there's a lot of the creative process on display here. You can see a lot of mess ups. You get to see songs and sketches that didn't make it into the final special, and he has entire completed songs. They're done, shot, everything's good. And it's just, it didn't make it into the final thing. And so it's like there's extra songs, there's behind the scenes, there's outtakes. It's a really interesting look into this wonderful piece of art that itself spawned another piece of art that is an hour long, and just a fascinating look into the creative process.
Wow.
So yeah, and it's just for free on YouTube. You can just watch it right now.
Awesome. Great to know. All right, I'm going to follow that up with a movie that I absolutely love. I watched it during the pandemic. I need to watch it again just to refresh my memory, because as I started thinking about this film, I was like, there's so many details that have, kind of evaporated out of my head. But anyway, it's called Made You Look, a true story about fake art. It is on Netflix, and on IMDb, it says Made You Look is an American crime documentary about the largest art fraud in American history, set in the super rich, super obsessed, and super fast art world of New York. And it is directed by Barry Avrich. He also helped write it with Melissa Hood. And
wait, his name is Barry Average?
Average.
Oh.
His parents did not like him. He's very average.
Yeah. That is really unfortunate.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's super, if you like true crime, it's beautiful. And it says, like Netflix says, Made You Look is the true story about the fake painting scam that swindled the art world out of more than $80 million.
Wow.
And it said that, it kind of began when a buyer discovered that the yellow paint used in a piece that was supposed to be Jackson Pollock's piece was invented after Jackson Pollock's death. So that's kind of how it all started. Yeah. So there you have it. Those are our recommendations for documentaries. And I started thinking, for our Patreon people, we are going to begin releasing sort of little sheets or little guides for all of these documentaries that we have been talking about, because I think it would be really handy to have, even keep forgetting the stuff that we have talked about over the past, and we're generating a very good library of some super good films. So we're going to start giving this as a little bonus thank you to our Patreon supporters, who we absolutely love. So you guys can look for that in the future. I also wanted to get an update from the two of you. I'd love to know what's going on the Movie Proposal podcast and anything in Jason's work life that he's able to share. So let's start with you, Jason. What's going on in your world?
I actually don't really have anything. So so let's just let's just jump right into the movie proposal.
Fun. Kick it off, Jason.
We just released an episode on RRR, which is a Tollywood film that's 3 hours long, and it is fantastic and insane. And it was a really fun episode. Josh, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Well, if you were to see the trailer or watch this movie, I think most of us would call it a Bollywood film. So, which in my opinion, we're splitting hairs, but technically it's not a Bollywood film. It's a Tollywood film. But as far as Americans are concerned, it looks just like a Bollywood film.
It's because of the language that it's produced in.
Right. But in my mind, a Bollywood film is, it's the actors are primarily Indian. It's kind of over the top. Maybe the acting's not so great. I didn't know this, but a lot of these films have singing in them, like just in the middle of it. Like it's not like a traditional like American musical where like this is a musical, like we're gonna watch Guys and Dolls, and it opens with a song, and a song we tell us like it's just this. It's a regular movie, and then all of a sudden, someone just starts singing. You're thinking, what is going on here? But
I remember I texted you and Sky because I'm the one who watched it first and got them to watch it. It was like 50 minutes in, and the first musical number happened.
Right.
And I was like, oh, is this a musical? And it's like,
right.
Kind of, because there's like 4 songs probably, but they're all at pivotal moments to the story, but nowhere else. So it's not like, La La Land, where like, oh, we're just going to break into song for this scene. And, it's not like that at all. It's really fascinating.
And it's part storytelling device, part pure entertainment. I mean, they go like the action sequences are bonkers. They defy physics. They defy reality. I mean, you witness people get murdered and they're fine, like
just like literally stabbed in the heart. And the next scene, they're fine.
Right.
It's like, what?
Right.
But other people just straight up die.
We just watched, what's the one with Ryan Reynolds where he's in the computer game?
He's in the computer game?
Ryan Reynolds?
Oh,
Free Guy.
Yeah. Free Guy. That reminds me of Free Guy. Well, which, by the way, is a great movie.
It is a great movie, but here's what's interesting about that is there's a premise, a device, like he's in a video game. So he can get away with stuff that makes sense. If you watch Captain America, he has superhuman strength, so he can do things that defies what you and I could do. This movie,
they're just dudes.
They just do it, right? They just do it. It's just pure passion. They're so passionate about what they're doing that they can do incredible feats of strength and human recovery and whatever. But I saw someone call this a name where it was something like maximized filmmaking or something where they
maximum effort,
something like that. And it had a clever name to it, which I thought rang true, which was what I took away from this film was the actors and the filmmakers love movies and they loved making this film. And they took all the things that we love about movies, whether it's songs and musical numbers or action sequences or romance, or in this case, a male friendship is like the centerpiece of here. And so they really, hype that up. So everything, and then the bad guys are just as bad as you can make them. And they're very two-dimensional and all that kind of stuff. And, but they just took it to the nth degree. And if you're okay with that, it's a fun ride. So
I was going to say, do you think this is a good movie? Did you give it a good recommendation?
Well, Sky loved it. It sounds like Jason loved it. Yes.
It's really fun. But you're not coming here for a hardcore drama, or quite frankly, you're not coming here to learn anything. Right. It's like, It's not a story. It's not a historical drama. There are characters in it who are real people who actually were a part of the Indian Revolution and throwing off their British oppressors, but they are highly fictionalized and the things they do are highly fictionalized. But it also is just a look into, British imperialism, which is interesting to see from, an oppressed person or oppressed people's perspective. Because it's like there's no, a lot of Western movies would try to find some sort of redeeming quality, and it's like, no, they're just evil because they were.
And there's no complexity, there's no layer to them.
No,
they're just evil.
Bad people want to do bad thing, and it works. It totally works in the story, and it's really compelling and interesting to watch. So
it's the most successful Indian film on Netflix. and its box office is almost 100 million. So it's getting a lot of attention for those reasons. And besides the fact that people really enjoy it. So
what does RRR stand for?
Actually, a lot of things.
Yeah, it's a very complicated.
All right. Well, this is making me extremely curious. So it's not a documentary, but I had made it onto our list. You might as well add that on there, Jason, to just put in parentheses, not documentary. And can you just remind us a little bit about the formula of the show, Josh, just in case people haven't listened to the Movie Proposal podcast? I highly recommend it. So give us a little your sales pitch for what it is.
Well, it's Jason, myself, and Sky Jitani, who you may know from the Holy Post. We have a format of something old, new, borrowed, blue. So we discuss an old movie that must be 20 years older or more, something new that just came out, something borrowed, related, like an article or something related to the something new, and then something blue, something we saw recently that blew our minds or blew chunks. And it's not really, we are not film critics by any measure. We just like to talk about movies. I even saw after this episode of RR was released, people were still wondering, well, did Josh like the film? Because I didn't even really talk about that. I just talked about how bonkers it was. And then I talked about a particular element of this film that they can't do in American films today. And it wasn't saying RRR was good or bad. It was just, I was commenting on this little.
Well, did you like it or not?
I did, but it's hard to say. I mean, I was exhausted. I would have given up on this film had I not been asked to watch it for the podcast. But I was so glad I finished. By the end, the action sequences. I mean, by 2.5 hours into it, you're like, all right, I'm in. I care about these characters now.
But how long is this movie?
3 hours, 5 minutes, but the action sequence at the end are so well from the beginning to the end. They're so over the top, but at the end, it's really just like really pedal to the metal. I was laughing out loud. I mean, it was fun.
Yeah.
I was having fun, but I was laughing out loud. I'm like, this is bonkers. But the other thing too is like it's not cheesy looking. Like the effects are pretty good, and they're not great. Like they're good enough for what they're trying to do, but this wasn't low budget, and it's a ride. It's I don't know how else to describe it other than a fun ride that is 3 hours long. And I think Sky and Jason said they'd watch it again. I would probably take a pass, but overall I would give it thumbs up. I enjoyed it.
Christian, just to set how insane some of the scenes are in this. Like there's one scene where a motorcycle is driving at somebody. Mm-hmm. He kicks the front tire, it flips in the air, he grabs it and uses it as his weapon for a foreseeable portion of the a little bit of the movie. He's using a motorcycle as his weapon. Right. he's just like this super ripped dude. He's not like Captain America or anything. It's like even Captain America wielding a motorcycle as a weapon is a little
right
a little out there, and this is even beyond that, and it's just a dude. So, and there's so many things like that, like a car crashes and a guy flies up in the air out of a convertible. There's a rifle in the air, he grabs it, takes a shot before he hits the ground. It's just like
it's all slow motion and just fire and like
how much did this movie cost to make?
Oh, that's a good question.
Probably a lot.
Yeah.
It's also the visual effects are fantastic. Like Bollywood, Tollywood films generally have a reputation of not being fantastic when it comes to visual effects, and like the physics are insane and everything, but it is absolutely incredible. Okay, so the budget is 3.5 billion of some symbol I don't recognize. So let me see. It would be about $44 million.
Oh, okay.
That's yeah.
Wow, crazy. Yeah. All right, well, there you have it, folks. Today you got more than 3 documentaries, that's for sure. But you also got a recommendation for the Movie Proposal podcast, which I do highly recommend. Jason, we'll just keep watching you on Instagram, I suppose, and waiting for something fun to happen.
Same.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, remind us of your Instagram again, Jason.
You can find it at Jax, Jax, and A-N-D, Chawn, CHAWN. You can find it there, or you can find it on Twitter, but most of the episodes and sketches and things are up on Instagram.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you to all the people that listen to our podcast each week, that also support us on Patreon. Thank you for your patience as we're kind of in a transition period. I appreciate you, continuing to follow along to see what's going to happen with us. And we haven't forgotten about you. So thank you very much for your time. We consider it a gift. You can always support us and join Patreon if you're listening to this and you haven't. It will help me pay for all of the Eno Insurance things and the licensing rights that are on my table right now. So thank you for that. Thank you, Josh and Jason, for being here. I really love having you both back.
Well, thanks for having us. And to our listeners, thank you for listening to Documentary First, where we believe everyone has a story to tell and you can be the one to tell it.
Yes, you can. Bye, everybody.